Welcome back, CAD 37 class. Today we're going to go over CATIA online tutorials. So I'm going to show you how to access the tutorials. Unfortunately, it may not be easy for most of you, so I'm going to walk you through how to access tutorials. First, I'll show you how to access them through CATIA itself. And if that doesn't work, we can try one of the links below to access the CATIA tutorial files and step-by-step instructions on how to use commands such as point command, line command, etc. Alright, so once again, you may try these links to access the tutorials, but wait until I go over this first before you try it, because some of these links may not be secured websites. Either way, I'm going to send you an email with the tutorial CATIA parts, and you can just follow along with the video. Okay, and we'll do a video for each command. Okay, some of the videos may take 5 minutes, some may take maybe 10 minutes, so these are going to be short videos. All right, so before we start, let's go back to our syllabus. Okay, in the syllabus for your assignments, some of these may look familiar. The impeller handout, 200 points. Box handout, 200 points. Final project, 300 points. And we have CATIA wireframe. So when we talk about wireframe, it includes points, lines, planes, axes, etc., splines. So for this class session, we're going to go over wireframe tutorials. And then in the next session, we'll talk about how to create surfaces using the tutorials. That's 100 points. And then the week after, or the session after, we'll go over operations, blending surfaces, one surface to another. Okay, and that'll be 100 points. And there's roughly around 15 tutorials per area. So about 15 tutorials for wireframe and surface and operations for each one. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to access the wireframe tutorials, and we'll do our first tutorial, the point command. All right, so if you go to the last page of the syllabus, here it is. It's broken up into 3 parts, the tutorials. So once again, wireframe. So we'll go over all these commands, 1 video per command. And the next session, we'll go over creating surfaces. And then the session after that, we'll go over how to use operations to blend or join surfaces, one surface to another. Okay, so for this class session, we're going to focus on wireframe. All right, so how do we access the tutorials? All right, so let's go back. Go back to our lecture. Okay, so if you're on campus using one of the school computers, you can go to Help. So if you open up CATIA, go to Help, go to Contents, Index, and Search. That'll take you to the tutorials. We've had issues in the past where we were not able to access the tutorials. So that's why I'm going to, again, email you the CATIA files, and you can follow along on the video or through the links that I'm going to provide. All right, so once you click on Help, Contents, Index, and Search, it'll take you to the site, and your firewall or your antivirus is going to try and block it, so just allow it to and hit OK. And it'll take you to this site where you can access a wealth of tutorials. Don't forget that CATIA has over 100 workbenches or modules. Okay, and it has tutorials for each module. Okay, so if you ever want to practice how to do NC programming for machining, they have tutorials on this site. They have assembly tutorials, part design tutorials, surfacing, and so on. All right, and I'll show you how to access them. All right, so if you're trying to access the website or your local files, allow it to open and hit OK. And we're going to access the generative shape design. Okay, so in order to access generative shape design, you need to hover over shape, design, and styling, hover over it. And these are all the surfacing and styling, surface styling workbenches that CATIA has. As you can see, there's 10 of them, maybe even more now. Okay, so we're going to only focus on generative shape design, and towards the end of the last class session, maybe the last 2 weeks, we'll focus on freestyle, which is used a lot in automotive for styling surfaces for exterior surfaces, the exterior of the vehicle or interior of the vehicle. So automotive, those that use CATIA, they tend to use a combination of generative shape design and freestyle. And also some aerospace and manufacturing companies will also use freestyle. And those that use CATIA, especially aerospace, they use a lot of generative shape design. All right, so when you go to the tutorials for generative shape design, it'll take you to a split window. So let me go ahead and walk you through that, what it really looks like. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, along with the email, I'm going to send you these links. Again, these websites may not be secure. I just by accident found them online. Okay, so try this one first. If this doesn't work, then try the other one. You may have to try it on Chrome, Edge, Firefox, or Internet Explorer. It doesn't seem to work with all websites or with all sites, so with sites providers. So you may need to play around to see which one will give you the access. I've been having trouble accessing. I've been using this for years, but now I'm having trouble accessing the tutorials through this site or that link. So now I'm going to use this link instead, one that I just found last year. Okay, so I'm going to copy this link. Again, I'm going to send you an email with this attached Word document with the links to each tutorial for wireframe. All right, so this link will take you to the CATIA tutorials. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this link. I couldn't get it to work in Chrome, but it did work on Edge for me. So I'm going to go ahead and paste it, Control V, and go to the site. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Again, hover over any of these sections here and look at all these are workbenches in CATIA. Now, on campus, we have access to a lot of the workbenches, actually quite a bit. At your job, you may only have a limited amount of access to the workbenches. And maybe even on your student license, you may only have limited access to actually quite a few workbenches, but not the 100 plus that CATIA has available. If you hover over mechanical, look at all the part design workbench, assembly, drafting, and so on. We're going to go to shape design and styling. Again, we're going to use generative shape design. And later on, towards the end, the last 2 weeks, I'm going to introduce you to freestyle. We don't have assignments in freestyle, but I think you should take a look at freestyle, especially if you want to work in automotive. If you want to work in a studio design, or design studio, I should say, in automotive, where they make the clay models, these large full-size clay models of automobiles, and even they do the interior out of clay, and then you scan it, digitize it, and then you recreate it on the computer from scratch using CATIA or a software like Alias. Alias is owned by Autodesk, which owns AutoCAD. Okay, those seem to be the most popular softwares out there in automotive for surfacing, CATIA and Alias, A-L-I-A-S. Okay, so I'm going to click on Generative Shape Design. Okay, and there's a split window, right? See this line, this horizontal line? So if I go back to the lecture notes, okay, so we see a line which we can grab and move up and down. So on the top, it'll show you what tutorials are available for wireframe. So again, we are going to be creating wireframe. And you can go down and pick the command you want to practice. And once you click for examples on points. Hey, I want to learn how to create points in CATIA. Once you click on it, it'll load in the bottom window pane. It'll load instructions with the CATIA part and step-by-step how to use the command and all the different options available to you on how to use that command or how to create your point in this example. Okay, so let's go ahead and play around with this split window. Okay, so let's go back to the internet. Okay, so here's our split window. So if I grab this horizontal line, left mouse click and hold, look at all the tutorials that are available. Okay, so we're going to focus, for this class session, we're going to focus on how to create wireframe. And the class session after will be creating surfaces. And the session after that will be doing operations for surfacing. Okay, blending, fillet, joining surfaces. All right, we're not going to have time to go through all of them. We'll just go through the most important ones. Okay, we don't have time to go through every single tutorial. So some of these we will skip. But if you have extra time and you really want to practice your generative shape design workbench, then come back to some of these and play with these on your own time. Anytime I'm in between jobs and I want to practice my CATIA, I always come back to surfacing. I always want to play around with the different commands, especially the ones that I hardly use or have trouble understanding. Some of these are difficult to understand, especially when you're projecting and you're dealing with angles. Some of these commands are very difficult to understand. Play with it and try and figure out how the geometry works. All right, so we're going to be creating points. So I'm going to click on create points and then see at the bottom it load. So now I'm going to move the window pane. It loads the creating points tutorial. If I was to go to lines, keep an eye on the bottom. It'll load the lines tutorial and it'll provide a CATIA part. All right, so let's go back to creating points. Okay, so there it is. So once again, it introduces you to creating points. This task shows you the various methods for creating points. It'll show you how to define your points using XYZ coordinates, point on a curve, point on a plane, on a surface, center of a circle or sphere, points tangent on a curve, or points between existing points. All right, so now let's say you're having trouble again accessing this website. Notice again, it says not secure. So if you don't feel comfortable going to this website, I don't blame you. You can just follow along on this YouTube video. Okay, so let's go back to the lecture. Okay, so once again, on the top window pane, you're gonna select the tutorial you want to learn. Hey, creating points. And then on the bottom, it'll load. Go to the next slide. It'll load the tutorial. And it'll tell you, hey, the objective of this tutorial is to learn how to create points and how to define points. And you can click on the CATIA part and it'll download it and then you can open it. Okay, so here's what our first tutorial looks like. Okay, so this is the tutorial for how to create points. Okay, so just to show you how it works, I have CATIA open, as you can see. If it's not open, it'll launch once you try and open the tutorial for points. Okay, so let's go to the website. So here we are, website, creating points. And here's the CATIA part. And again, if you don't feel comfortable going to this website because it's not secure, I'm going to email you these CATIA parts. Okay, and these CATIA parts I downloaded while I was in the computer lab. All right, so I'm going to click on it and it downloads it. Give it a few seconds and now I can open the file. Okay, so as you can see, it's a CATIA part. I'm going to open it. And it's going to load in CATIA. If your CATIA is not open, give it a few seconds for it to open CATIA and load the file. And there we have it. Okay, there's our file. And we're going to be creating points on these elements, whether it's a curve, circle, or surface. Okay, so I'll come back to this. So for this video, we are going to do the points tutorial. Okay. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so now we know how to access the tutorials. Once you complete this tutorial, again, these will be short videos on the tutorials, 5 minutes, maybe less than 10 minutes. Okay. All right. And just a reminder, as I've mentioned in other videos, if you are not in the Generative Shape Design workbench, so if I open up the file, right? When I open up the CATIA file, it may not take you to the Generative Shape Design workbench. It may end up taking you to Part Design. So if you open up this file, chances are, whichever workbench you use last, with respect to a single part, that's where it's going to take you. The last workbench you used was Part Design, it's not going to bring it into the Generative Shape Design workbench. It'll bring it into the Part Design workbench. Okay, so when you first open this file, if you use Part Design recently, that's where it's going to take you. As you can see, we are in Part Design. Okay, so if you are in Part Design, we want to take this file into Generative Shape Design. Okay, so even though this file is for using Generative Shape Design, it's still the same .cat part type of file that we use for Part Design. You can move a CAT part file, a CATIA part file, from Part Design to Generative Shape Design and back and forth. You can do surfaces in Generative Shape Design and then go back to Part Design and turn them into solids. Okay, so you can jump between the two workbenches and others, like Freestyle, which I'll introduce towards the end of this class, this half semester class. All right, so to get to Generative Shape Design, in case you forgot, you go to Start, go to Shape, and Generative Shape Design, right? That'll take us to that workbench. Just so you know, the new CATIA refers to it as apps, right? Just like a phone app. All right, so we are in Part Design. Let's take this over to Generative Shape Design. And there it is. So I have the student license, so I don't have all the other. So we have 4 out of the 10 available surfacing workbenches. So this is the student license. So let's go to Generative Shape Design, and you can see the icons change from Part Design to Generative Shape Design. All right, and by the way, Part Design does have some of the commands like point, line, plane that we see here in the Generative Shape Design workbench. Okay, so just be aware that Part Design does have a few of these commands for wireframe. All right, so let's go back to our lecture. Okay, so this class session, we're going to be focusing on wireframe. So we do have a wireframe toolbar in the Generative Shape Design. Okay, so we'll be focusing on this toolbar for this class session. And later on, we'll be doing the surfaces, and after that, the operations. Okay, don't forget to insert a geometric set. I'm not going to take points off if you don't insert a geometric set. So I am going to ask you, hey, when you open the tutorials, start your own geometric set, call it My Geo Set or New Geometry Geo Set, so that you don't mix it up with the existing geometry that's provided for you. But I will not take points off if you forget to do this step. It's just helps you stay organized. And if I haven't mentioned it before, you can place geosets, geometric sets, inside of other geosets. You can even place them inside of a part body. Again, part bodies, we tend to use it for solids. We're not creating solids in this class. We're going to be doing geometric sets. So geosets is for wireframe surfaces, surface operations, right? All right, so once again, it's optional, but it's just a good way to stay organized. Think of your tree as a binder, and you want to stay organized. Have your separators or dividers, I should say, and label each divider. Here's my divider for math, my divider for science, my divider for English, and so on. And make sure to define the geoset you're going to be working in. So if you're creating new geometry and you want it to drop into this geoset, right-click, define. It underlines it, letting you know that any new geometry you create is going to be dropped into this geoset. Okay, if you want to give it a name, right-click. If you want to give your geoset a name, right-click, Properties. Go to Feature Properties and give it a name. Call it New Geometry or My Geoset, right? If it's existing geometry, we typically call it a Master Geometry. Okay, that's existing geometry. A good example is if you're working in aerospace, the fuselage surface, the wing surfaces, those tend to be master geometry. So those are the ones that are going to dictate what the other parts are going to look like, or we're going to build within those surfaces. Okay, so we'll place any new geometry in a separate geoset. Okay, and once again, I'm going to send you a Word document with all these links. Okay, this PDF file, we're not able to copy and paste, I believe, but it's okay. I'm going to send you this Word document where you can highlight, right-click, copy and paste if you want to do the tutorials through the website. All right, let's go back. Okay, so this first video, we're going to do a creating points tutorial. And then at the end of the video, I'll start a new one and we'll do a video for line and axis, how to create an axis line afterwards. Okay, we'll do a separate video for that. All right. Once again, the next video will be how to create lines, and eventually we'll learn how to create planes. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a preview of the tutorials we're going to cover in wireframe. All right, so let's go ahead and work on our first tutorial. If you want to go straight to the tutorial, you can always use this link. Control-C to copy. So if you're ready to work on points, so I'll start a new tab and paste the link, and it'll take me straight to creating points, as you can see, right? There it is. Again, it's not a secure site. And again, if you don't feel comfortable going to these sites, I am going to email you a zipped folder along with the notes, along with the link to this video and the Word document with all the links to the tutorials. So I'm going to email you a zip folder for all the tutorials and for creating wireframe geometry, point command, line command, planes, axes, etc. Okay, so I will send you a zipped folder. A zip folder is a folder that takes files and compresses them. So imagine like you're going on vacation, you're going to miss your flight, you just jam all your clothes in a suitcase and you sit on it and close the zipper, right? You're compressing the files. It's just easier to email and it eats up less memory. Okay, so when you download the zip folder, don't forget to extract. Okay, in other words, unzip it. So you have to right click, extract all files. And you're going to see that it's going to make a copy and maybe drop it somewhere here towards the bottom left here where there's open space. Yeah, go ahead and unzip it and create a duplicate folder. And look here towards the left as I hit extract in 3, 2, 1, extract. And there it is. Okay, so these are the files that you should be opening. Don't open the CATIA files. So in the zip folder, I have the CATIA files for the tutorials for wireframe. Just go to the extracted one. And there's the folder for the wireframe tutorials. Double click. Okay, just like on the syllabus, I labeled them A through M for the wireframe tutorials. And I can go to creating points, and I can just open this cat part. And it's the same one that's been used for years, okay? All right, so if you want to open it from here, go for it. If you want to open it from the website, it's up to you. So if I double click on it, it's going to load the file that I already have open because I opened it from, I downloaded it from the link. Okay, so either one works, right? Here's the points command, or I should say points cat part. And when you're done, don't forget to save it with your name or initials. Okay, and I'll walk you through that also. All right, so let's do our first tutorial, how to create points. Now this is existing geometry, right? So I'm going to take the existing geometry, I'm going to give it some color, and I'm going to change the name. I'll call it Master Geometry or Existing Geometry. I'll leave it up to you. And if you're working in aerospace, these are the main surfaces of a wing, engine nacelle, fuselage, tail section. These surfaces are typically referred to as Master Geometry, and that also includes axes. The axis system. Okay, so I'll call it Existing Geometry. Okay, and I'm going to apply and look at the tree. I'm going to apply. There it is. And let's go to Graph. I'm going to make the surfaces, instead of vanilla, I'll make them brown just so it's not too bright, and also because it makes it easier to find our points when we create them. Let me use a dark color for the surfaces. See if this one's okay. So the first one is for surfaces. I'm going to apply it. Yep, that's much better. It's just easier on the eye, and it'll be easier for finding points. The points that we create later on. Okay, and the second color is for the edges of surfaces. And the third one is to change the color of wireframe. And finally, the last one is for points. Okay, so for points, I'll make them yellow, and I'll make them squared. If you have a computer with a good graphics card, your points will show a lot larger than mine, my old laptop that I've had for over 5 years. Okay, so hit OK, and it's much slower than yours most likely. Okay. Okay, so there's the points in yellow, existing points. All right, so let's go ahead and follow the tutorial. We're going to create our points, but let's first insert our own geoset. So I'm going to insert my own geoset. If you want, you can call it My Geoset or New Geometry, right? And hit OK. It'll load. And there it is, it's underlined. If it wasn't underlined, right click, define, and it'll underline it, letting you know any new geometry you create will drop in this geoset. One thing I do want to do is change the color of the points. I'm going to go right click properties. I'm going to change the color of the points to yellow, and I'll make the points squared. If you want to play with one of the others, go for it. All right, so I'm ready to create geometry. It just makes it easier when there's existing geometry. It's easier to learn a new command versus not having any geometry, existing geometry. All right, so let's go to the tutorial. Okay, so first step is learn how to create points using coordinates. Okay, so once again, you can open the file from here, from the site, or from the zipped folder that I'm going to email to you. Just don't forget to unzip that folder, because later on you may have trouble saving your file once you're done. All right, I do have to give you a warning. It may not pop up on this or show up on this video, but in a later video, maybe like the line command, even though this tutorial is walking you step by step on what you're going to do, sometimes there's a mistake. You're going to find mistakes on the tutorials, or maybe the geometry is not there that they're describing. Okay, so if you find yourself stuck on one of the tutorial that should take you 5 minutes, let's say it takes you half an hour and you're still going in circles, just give it up. If you don't complete the tutorial, it's okay. You're still going to get full credit. I want to at least see that you tried the command and did a few points. If you don't do if you don't follow the entire tutorial, it's okay. As long as you did as long as you did part of the tutorial, you'll still get full credit for that assignment. All right. So once again, if you're stuck on a command for half an hour, give it up and just save what you did and turn it in, and you'll get the full credit. All right, so we're going to create our first point using coordinates. So let's go back to coordinates. Okay, so using coordinates, we're going to go to the drop down. See this lock over here on the right? If you're going to be creating a bunch of points, let's say you're going to be creating dozens of points using coordinates, you can lock this option. So it's always going to default to coordinates. Another option is to create points on a plane, for example. If you're going to be creating a bunch of points on a plane, then you go to the plane option, you go to the drop down, go to plane option, and then you can lock that option. So it always defaults to back to that option that you want to use over and over again. All right, so we're going to create our first point. So we're going to use the point command, and we're going to type in our coordinates. It's in millimeters. Okay, so I got to change my units to millimeters. And we're going to type in 10, 120, and 20 for our coordinates for our first point. So let's go back to the tutorial. Okay, so let's first check our units. I'm going to go to Tools, Options. Okay, so go to General, right? You open General, go to Parameters and Measure, go to Units tab, and currently I'm in inches, so let's scroll up to millimeters. And okay. Okay, you guys should already be experts at this. All right, so we're going to create our first point. So let's go to the point command. Okay, there's the point command. Click on it. And see it's already dropping it into our new geoset. Okay, so we're going to use the coordinates option. Okay, so the first option is coordinates. If you're going to use the coordinates option over and over again, that's where you want to lock this. So it always defaults back to coordinates. I rarely ever use this, but it's just so you're aware of it. Okay, so I'll just unlock it so I can see. The thing is, even though I have coordinates, and let's say I click on a curve, it's going to assume you want to put a point on a curve. So it happens. This happens when you accidentally click on something. So watch me click on this spline and watch what it does up here. See, it assumes you want to put a point on a curve. But if you were to lock it, it should move. So let's go back to coordinates. Nope, I want to do coordinates. And I can lock it. And it should not let me go back to curves. Let me see how it's not allowing me to pick a curve. It's giving me that stop sign. Like, nope, can't do it. So it is helpful to lock it if need to. I rarely use it, but it's available. I'll unlock it. All right, so our first coordinates, or our first point, we're going to use the coordinates option, the first one. And we're going to type in 10 millimeters. We can hit tab on the keyboard or just click on the next one, and 120 for the y-axis, or the y-coordinate I should say, and then hit tab on the keyboard and 20 for the z-coordinate. Okay, and tab. All right, so if you want to go with respect to an existing point instead of the origin, so here's the origin, 0, 0, 0. You can go off of a different point or axis point if you have another axis system floating in space, and we'll talk about that in a later video. All right, so I'm going to hit preview, and there's the point, as you can see. But just to show you what happens if I was to pick a point as a reference. Let's say I pick this point. See how it moves with respect to that point? So now this is the origin, and it's still following my XYZ axis, which I don't have one. I'll insert one in a minute. Okay, so there's my first point, and hit OK. But actually, you know what? I shouldn't hit OK. I should clear this. I didn't want to use that as a reference, so I'm just going to clear it. So select point reference. It'll turn blue, right click, and you should be able to clear it. Clear selection. Go back to the default, which is 0, 0, 0, and OK. Okay, so there's my first point. Let me change the color of my XYZ planes. You don't need to have them on. Okay, I just want you guys to be able to see it. I'm going to change them to a bright yellow, just so you guys can see them. So again, the third option is for edges of surfaces or planes. Okay, I'll make him yellow. And I'll make them a little thicker so we can see them. Apply. And OK. And then click in space to deselect. There they are. If you want to insert an axis as a reference, here's the axis. You don't have to. Insert an axis. And it'll default to 0, 0. There it is. There's the axis. Okay, it defaults to the origin where all three planes intersect. All three XY, YZ, ZX plane. If you're having trouble seeing the axis, right, there it is. You can always right click properties and give it a different color so it stands out. Bright color. Apply and OK. There it is. And in a later video, I'll show you how to change the size of an axis and also planes. Okay, let's go back. So we created our first point. Okay, let's go to the tutorial. Okay, so now they're going to tell us to create a point on a curve. Okay, so create a point on a curve. Okay, so we're going to pick the spline. And does it give us a length? I guess it's okay if they don't give us a length. We'll make one up. You don't have to follow the same numbers they do. All right, so I don't think they give us a length, so we'll make something up. All right, so let's put a point on the spline. Okay, so here's our spline. And we're going to use the point command again. If you're going to do multiple points, you can simply double click on the command and you can just keep creating as many points as you want. Once you're done creating points, you can just deselect the command or hit escape on the keyboard or cancel the command. Okay, so let's use point command and we're going to place it on this curve, right? So even though coordinates is the default option, usually also it's whatever last option you use, it'll come back again next time you use the command. So if I click on the spline, it should know, hey, this is on a curve. There it is. It's on a curve. The second option. Okay, so it's going to use the endpoint on the left as the reference. Okay, so let's see. I don't know what number to input, so I'm going to just go ahead and let's go with 200, see what we get. So you can see the point traveling along. Now this is geodesic. Okay, so let's go back to 200. Let me type in 200 and click away. You can pick whatever number you like. Okay, so this is distance along a curve. Okay, so it's 200 millimeters as you go along the curve, right? That's geodesic. If you go Euclidean, it'll be a straight line from the reference point. So it defaulted to this point and to the point on the curve. So let's see what happens when you click on Euclidean. In 3, 2, 1, don't blink. So see now, it's a straight line. That's the measurement. 200 millimeters, right? Versus geodesic, where it's the distance along the curve. All right. You also have the ratio option. You can say, hey, I want to, instead of typing in a number, I can pick a ratio and say, hey, I want to go halfway along the curve. So if you want to go halfway, you can type in 0.5. Watch what happens is as it goes from 0.1 to 0.2. Oh, my mistake. It goes in increments of 0.01. But you can just click on the arrow until you get to halfway, right? Ratio 0.5, 1 to 2. Okay, so you have that option. Once again, you can use distance. And also you can go along a direction, an axis, or an existing line. All right, so another option is, let's say you wanted to reference the other point. So if you want to go off of this point and not the one on the left, if you want to go off of this endpoint on the right, we can go reverse. See, so now it's traveling in the opposite direction as you increase or decrease the length or ratio. Another thing you can do is with respect to another point out in space. So we have a point out here in space and say, hey, you know what? I want to reference it off of that point and not the existing endpoints. So if I was to say, you know what? I'm going to reference something other than the existing endpoints. Click here, reference point. And if I select this point, watch what happens when I select this point. See, now it's going off of this point. So what it does, let me zoom in a little bit. If you reference it off of a point that's floating in space, notice that it's not on the curve, it's out in space. Even though we're putting a point on the curve, we're referencing this point. And let's go ahead and reverse the direction. As you can see, it's going off of that point. So what it's doing is, it's projecting the point normal to the curve. So the nearest point on the curve at a perpendicular or normal, right? It projects it and then it goes off of that point, right? Here's our new point. Okay, so that's an option. Okay, if you want to hit enter here, you're happy with it, hit OK. If you want to go off of an endpoint instead of a reference point, that's okay. And hit OK. And there's our point on a curve. Okay, if you ever want to change things, you can always double click either physically on the model or on the tree to make changes. If you want to change the ratio or distance, right? You can always do that by simply double clicking to alter. Okay, and OK. Okay, let's go back to the instructions. Okay, so we just created a point on a curve. Okay, we can also create a point on a closed curve, right? Okay, so we have this other curve over here. Okay, so let's put a point on this curve. Point on curve, right? So see, it remembers that we chose curve as our the last time we created a point. And click on the closed curve and see it's using this point as our reference point, our extremum. So what it's doing is it could have chosen any point on this curve, but it chose this one. Notice it says extremum, so that tells us that it's picking the point furthest with respect to the x direction. My mistake, the z direction. Okay, so this is the highest point on this curve with respect to the z direction. Okay, and as you can see, it'll use that point, that reference point as our, so there it is, extremum 1. I'll use it as our reference. You can also flip it, I believe. Let's see if I click here. Actually, not flip it, but define one. Okay, so you can define it with respect to of a direction. So if you want to say, hey, I want to pick the most extreme point in the y direction. Okay, pick the y direction and so on, or the z or the x direction. Okay, and you can go left side or right side by picking max or min. Okay, so it can throw that reference point on the opposite side if you like, opposite direction for your reference. I'm going to just cancel out of this window. Okay, and I'll just create a point using the default reference point. And I'll go with distance, it's up to you. Let me type in 1,000 millimeters. And preview, and let me reverse it just for fun, why not? There it is. See the red arrow? You can also reverse it by clicking on the red arrow. I know the red arrow is a little bit hard to see, but you can also reverse it by clicking on it on the actual model, the red arrow, or by pushing the button. Okay? All right, so we got another point. And again, you'll get full credit even if you don't complete the entire tutorial for points command. Okay, let's go to the next one. Let's put a point on a plane. Okay, so let's go back to the tutorial. Okay, so we can pick any plane. The tutorial will tell you to use any existing plane. Well, we only have 3 planes, the X, Y, Y, Z, ZX. So I'm going to put a point on YZ, pick whichever plane you like, or any plane in space. So I pre-select the plane, click the point command, and you'll see that right away, hey, oh, you want to create a point on a plane. Since it's on a plane, all we need is a H direction, right? Horizontal direction, and a vertical. So we only need 2 coordinates. Okay, the plane's already taking care of the 3rd coordinate, so we only need 2. Okay, so you can type in a number. You can use your cursor to locate that point, or you can just simply increase it. So you can see it's barely moving, but you can see it. Let me decrease it. All right, so that's just another way to create a point on a plane using horizontal and vertical coordinates. Okay, and you can also use a point as a reference. Okay, so if I wanted to use this point here as a reference, the last point we created, I can go, hey, instead of referencing the origin, the default, I can pick this point, the last point I created. Notice it projects it normal to the plane, in this case the YZ plane. So it projects it normal to the YZ plane. Even though the YZ plane here looks tiny, it goes on forever, right? For how long? I said forever. All right, so let's go ahead and hit OK. And there's another point. As you can see, it's on this plane. You know what? Let's see if I remember how to, I remember how to increase the plane. Okay, if you want to increase the size of a plane, I don't know if it'll allow us to do it on the default planes, but it will allow you to change it on a new plane or any plane you create. Let's see if I can increase the length or size of the plane. Let me click on this icon, resize. Yes, it does. See the green buttons? Here's our point up here, right? As you can see, it's on this plane. Okay. Click in space to deselect. There it is, and I can turn this off. Similar to SolidWorks. So those of you that use SolidWorks, it's easy to stretch a plane, relocate it. Okay, so once again, this is the YZ plane, but you can do it on any plane you want. All right, let's go back to the tutorial, try something different. Okay, point on the surface. Okay, so we're going to put a point on a surface. Okay, so we're going to use the existing surface and create a point. Okay, so let's pick this surface, not the spherical one, but the second one. Okay, so I'm going to pre-select the surface. So when I go to point command, it knows that I'm trying to put a point on that surface. So it should default to surface, on surface, or it is. Okay, so notice I'm not clicking, I'm just looking for a location on the surface where to put that point. And it's going to reference the center of the surface. So this reference point, notice it says middle. Okay, so it's referencing the point at the center of the surface to go off of. Okay, so I can increase this, right? You can see that little preview of our new point. This is, and the green one is the center of the surface. I rarely use a point on a surface. If anything, I may project points onto a surface. But to actually put a point on a surface with respect to its center, I can't remember once if if I've ever used it. I do put a lot of points on the edge of surfaces, especially when I'm trying to trim something off or locate a line using that point on an edge. Okay, so, all right, so I'll just hit OK. And there's my new point. Again, it was referenced off the center of the surface. All right, let's go on to the next one. Okay, we can also put points on center of a circle, a sphere, an ellipse. Okay, so we do have that option. It can be a planar circle. It can be a 3D spherical shape, right? Like a surface, a spherical surface. Okay, so let's put center points on the circle and a center point on the spherical shape. Okay, let's go to, let me go ahead and go to ISO view. I'm getting a little mixed up here. I can always use the compass to rotate, as you can see. Okay, this large yellow plane is making me dizzy. I'm just going to go ahead and hide it. See how it's grayed out? I can always go to the background. So here's some hidden geometry from the master or existing geometry, as you can see. Let's go back to the show layer. There it is. All right, so we're going to put a point center of the circle. Okay, let me show you something that's quite common. You're ready to create a point at the center of a circle. So you go to, hey, I want to put a point center of a circle. And you misclick. It gives you an error. Hey, that's not a circle. You can't fool me. All right, so CATIA said that's not a circle. It's a spline. Okay, so now we have to reselect something new. Oh, I got to click in here. Pick circle, sphere, or ellipse. Select it, and there it is. It's already putting the point at the center. And hit OK. And there it is. We have so I use this quite a bit, especially with circles or arcs. Center points are very important. Okay, now let's put a center point on the sphere. Okay, so let's put a center. Click. See, it remembers the last command we used was circle, sphere, center. Okay, so, and there it is. Even though it's not a complete sphere, it does have a center. As you can see, there's the center point. Hit OK. And there it is, as you can see. All right, let's finish up this tutorial. Let's see what else we have left. Again, even if you don't complete the whole tutorial, you'll still get the full credit, even if you just did some of the steps. All right, so let's keep going. Okay, so tangent on a curve. So point tangent on a curve. Okay, so what is that? Okay, so if this is our curve, and this is our reference line or direction, just imagine taking this line or direction. It can be X direction, Z, Y direction with respect to the axis system. Okay, so if you say, hey, I want to put a point or points on this curve such that if I was to take this line, keep the same direction, and then place that on the spline, it's going to be tangent, right? So if I was to take this line and just lay it on here without changing the angle of the line, if I was to drop it, where does it make contact? Where it's tangent and it only touches once. There it is at that point and also at that point. Okay, so if you were to place this line on top of the spline at this area, where it first touches it, it's that point. Same thing on this side. If you were to take this line and drop it on the spline, the first point it touches is that point, right? So tangency goes through one point. All right, so let's go ahead and do that step. We're almost there, and we have one more step. All right, so let's use our blue spline. All right, so we're going to use line command. We're going to say tangent on curve. Tangent on curve. Our curve is the blue spline. And our direction is this line going in the X direction. Okay, so if I pick the X, watch what happens. See how it lights up? There it is. It's already giving me a preview of that point and this point. can be more than one solution. Okay, so if if I was to just drop this line without changing the angle onto the spline, it would be tangent at this point and at that point. Okay, it's just like wheels hitting the road. Your tires, whether it's a bicycle or a car, where it's making contact with the road, that's the tangent point. All right, so hit OK. And it's asking me, hey, do you want to keep both of them? There's two solutions. Sometimes you may want to keep one, and you can say, yeah, you know what, I only want to keep one. So you can pick one of these options, and then to help CATIA select which one you want, hey, if you want to keep this left side, give me a reference, something close to it. Hey, well, if I pick this origin, it's closer to this point than the other. Okay, so you can do that to filter out one of them and only keep one. You can filter it out, okay, by using the near far option. So if I wanted to keep this point, I can use this as a reference to keep this point. If I wanted to keep this one and get rid of the other one, keep this one, then pick this as your reference point. So that way it'll pick the nearest point of the two, which is this one. But I'm just going to keep all sub-elements. You know what? I'll keep both and hit OK. And there they are. Now, if you ever need to use one of these points, because right now it sees it as two elements, even though point 23, there it is. Not point 22, but point 23, it's actually, whoa, it's actually 3 points. I missed the one at the bottom. See that? I missed this one. Okay, so if you were to take the line and come in from the bottom and come straight up, it'll make contact here at one point only, right? So once again, if I was to take this line and drop it down and make a tangent at this point, right? So there's actually 3 solutions. So this is kind of common where you find yourself like, well, I only need one, but if I pick point 23, it's selecting all 3. I only need one. This is where you use the extract command, which I'll introduce later on. There's this command called extract. Okay, I just need to extract one of them. Let's say I want to extract. Okay. Let's say I wanted to extract this one out of the 3. So you select it. See, it's telling me, okay, you're selecting this point out of the 3. So all 3 right now are joined. I just need to borrow one of the 3 and hit OK. And see, there it is. So now as a group, point 23, as a group of 3, I can always hide it. Say, hey, I don't need all 3. I'm just going to borrow the one I need, the one on the far right. All right, so, and finally the last one is a point between 2 existing points. Okay, so between, if I want to place a point right between 2 existing points, hey, it'll do that. Okay, I don't know if I've ever used this command or this option, between points. I've done planes between planes. I don't know if I've done points between points out in the real world outside of class. All right, so let's see. I'm going to put a point between this endpoint and this point out here in space. If you want to pick a different one, go for it. If you want to use another point in space, or maybe 2 points in space. Okay, so let's use point command. Let's go between. Like, you know what? I want to put a point somewhere in here between this point and this endpoint. And I'm going to hit preview. Oh, right now it has a ratio of 0. So let me increase the ratio to 0.5. I'm going to just type in 0.5. And there it is, right in the middle. And you also have the middle option, so I don't have to type in 0.5. I can always pick middle. If you want to decrease it, change the ratio, right? Can do that. I'll just say, hey, I want it right in the middle of these 2 existing points, and hit OK. Okay, and there it is. So we're done with this assignment. I know this video was a lot longer than expected, but that's because I had to first show you how to access the tutorials. The other videos will be a lot shorter. Okay, so we're done. Let me close this GeoSet. Why not? All right, so I'm done. Let's save the work. Okay, so I'm gonna go File, Save As. Save it on your flash drive, your desktop, wherever you want to. Just keep it organized. Notice right now to the downloads. So when I downloaded this file from the internet, it placed it on my downloads folder. So I should place it someplace else, whether it's the desktop or flash drive. And you should create a new folder. Okay, so this is the points tutorial, and I would just put my initials so I don't mix it up with the original file. Okay, and I'll save it on the desktop and just click save. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I already have copies of this. Actually, you know what? I am going to save it. I don't know if I have copies of this, of the complete ones. Actually, I don't. So I'm going to go into the create points folder. Make sure it's not the zipped folder. Okay, so here's the original file, and here's the file with my initials that I'm saving, and 3, 2, 1, save. And notice up here on the upper left corner, hey, you saved your work, and it's now called Points 3D1 with my initials. All right, so if you want to email this to me or wait till you complete all the wireframe, I'll leave it up to you. You may want to close it first before you attach an email. So if you're planning on emailing this as soon as possible, close it before attaching it to the email. You may have troubles emailing it. And just a reminder, there was no due dates on the assignment. Okay, so that was our first wireframe tutorial, online tutorial. Okay, see you in the next video.